All right, we're going to begin with chapter 16 and talk about intelligence tests, or another way to say it is IQ tests. And so let's see what we have to look at under IQ tests. IQ tests are a measure of intelligence. And so, what in the world is intelligence? Is it a universal attribute? And your book talks about G. Now, G was one of the first conceptualizations, and that's basically where you want to try to take something that's maybe sort of like a theory, or it's out there but nobody's put a name to it yet. And so a man by the name of Charles Spearman back in the 20s was one of the first researchers to sort of put a name to intelligence. Now, he came up with this theory called general factor theory, and gave the factor itself a symbol or letter called G. And so to him, there's only one type of intelligence that accounts for individual difference between people, and pretty much the G was a measure about how well people deal with abstract relationships. Now, a lot of people are doing research on intelligence. And, is intelligence one thing, like Spearman said, or are there multiple intelligences? Are you sort of smart in one area, like let's say with math, computational kinds of things, but yet don't know a thing about mechanics? You have people who can't read or write but yet can tear down engines and put them back together again. Or are you like one of the world-renowned professors I had met in graduate school, as I was walking down one of the sidewalks at LSU and saw this man trying to change a flat. And he had his jack out, and he was just looking at it, and you can tell by the look on his face the man didn't know what he was doing. And so I introduced myself and said, "Would you like for me to help you change your flat?" And he was just so overjoyed. And he and I struck up a conversation, and he was a geologist, a professor of geology there at LSU, and I helped him change the flat, and he was very appreciative of what I did for him. And then I noticed 2 or 3 days later in the student paper, I saw this man's picture, and he was given this major award by a South American country because of his work. And the man, I didn't realize it, but was a world-renowned geologist. This man can go into almost any country and be welcomed. He has that kind of ability and knowledge, but yet he couldn't change a flat on his car. So, multiple intelligences. Is it just one thing, or is it a multitude of things? People are still trying to figure that out. Is it quantifiable? Can we put a number to it? If you say your IQ is 60, is that good or bad? If your IQ is 160, is that good or bad? Well, can we put a number on IQ or intelligence? And is it fixed? Or can it be changed? Can your IQ vary? Excuse me. Can it vary with age? Can it vary with experience? Those are some questions to ask. So defining intelligence. Intelligence is a construct or group of related variables, and it has some theoretical basis to it. All right. And so, from your book, you'll see that intelligence is a construct or group of related variables. These are things that are related to each other, like your ability to reason, your personality, your computational ability, and so your ability to learn. So there are a lot of different variables out there. And yet it has some theoretical basis to it. Some, like Spearman and others, have done some research into it and come up with some kind of theory to intelligence. Now, you may not think that that's an issue to be concerned about. Well, back in grad school, one of my areas of research, in fact what I did my dissertation on, was in the area of what is called artificial intelligence, where it's we're trying to get machines or computers to be able to think like humans can. And I did a lot of background reading and preparation for that dissertation by looking at how the brain works and all the research that's out there, and there's just a ton of it that a lot of people have tried to look at intelligence and see how it is we think and how we put things together, how we learn. You know, if I could explain how people learn, there'd be a Nobel Prize in it for me. But yet, you know, people learning is something we do every day. But yet, what's the process? And now there's some theories out there that try to explain it. And the whole process of research is trying to test those theories to see if they're correct or if they're incorrect. Now, we've had a whole lot of people who do research and put together theories on intelligence. We have Spearman, Thurston, Sternberg, and Gardner. These are four researchers, and your book does a good deal about looking at their theories of intelligence. And so we're going to kind of look at some of them in the next few slides. The first one is your general factor theory, or your G, like we mentioned just a few minutes ago. Charles Spearman is the researcher that's beginning to, or had in the 20s started looking at intelligence. Spearman conceptualized intelligences as a single underlying factor, or G, that explains individual differences between people. Now, as far as he was concerned, not everyone with a high G or high G level can do everything well. You know, you would think that you would have a high G level based on Spearman, you could do everything. You're super intelligent. Well, that's not the case. Now, he went ahead to note those differences, that there would have to be other factors, or an S, that were basically specific in nature. And so your G was your general underlying ability, pretty much what you're born with. And then your S was specific independent abilities. These could probably be things that you could learn. Now, Louis Thurston in the 1930s proposed that there were different types of basic or primary intelligences, and that they are independent of one another. And so, you and I are born with these three abilities to some level. And they are verbal ability, the ability to speak, spatial ability, the ability to be able to see and to understand our environment around us, and perceptual speed, how well can we take in all the things that are around us. Is it really possible to find a set of human behaviors that are truly separate from each other? And that's the real question and criticism that a lot of brain and learning researchers have with Thurston. It's not like we're three separate pieces that are separate from each other. Most researchers will think that there's a degree of overlap between these three, that you can't really separate them out, as Thurston tried to do. Now this one is a mouthful, triarchic. I guess that's my best shot at that one, theory. This was put together by one of the major psychologists of the 20th century, Robert Sternberg. And he believed that intelligence can be explained through the way individuals think and solve problems. Okay, so we can sit down, we see a problem, we sit down and we think about it. What's the way to solve it? Now, to do that, we have an information processing approach where we go out there and look at the information, and that we put together some kind of process in order to come to a explanation or to a solution to the problem that we've encountered. And in order to look at that processing, we got to examine the interaction between three things: competential intelligence, experiential intelligence, and contextual intelligence. Now, let me take a look and go over these here. All right. As far as Sternberg is concerned, computational intelligence focuses on the structures that underlie intelligent behavior, including the acquisition of knowledge. And pretty much it's what you know. How in the world did you learn all of the facts, figures that you learned in high school, in elementary school, in college, and from just reading and watching television? How did you get that information? Experiential intelligence focuses on the behavior based on experiences. It's what you did. We all come to life with some experiences. Some of us have more experience than others. And so those experiences help to make us who we are. And we try to look at new situations and try to kind of meld them together with our past experiences so we can build on those. And then contextual intelligence focuses on behavior within the context in which it occurs and involves adaptation to the environment, selection of a better environment, and shaping of the present environment. And it's pretty much how you behave. How do we interact with the environment that we're in and the people who we come in contact with? Some people have no problem getting along with others. Others, that's not the case. And so, according to Sternberg, you got to look at the interaction between those three things. to look at intelligence as a whole. And then we've got multiple intelligences. This is probably the easiest one to pronounce here. Put together by Howard Gardner. Now, he didn't think that intelligence was one thing. He looks at intelligence in a whole different way. There are 8 different types of intelligence. And then he lists them all. And we see them right here. And this one is a pretty comprehensive listing right there. And so our intelligence is a sum total of all 8 of those things. Emotional intelligence, or EI, is put forth by Daniel Goleman. It's an ability to be emotionally sensitive to others. It never fails to amaze me just how well women can connect that way on an emotional level with other people and be sensitive to others that way, compared to most men. That's not something that comes easily to us. The ability to understand your own emotions. Our emotions can range from sorrow to gladness, happiness to sadness. They can come and go. But how do we understand them? Do we just say, oh, it's no big deal, it's just the way that I am? Well, maybe there's more to it than that. But understanding how we act and react is kind of getting into that kind of study of our emotions and the ability to solve problems that involve emotional issues. Let's face it, people have all kinds of emotional issues, and that's almost a full-time job to be able to solve those problems that involve that kind of issue. And so that's looking at intelligence at a whole different level. Goleman argued that if self-awareness and persistence are just as important, if not more important, than IQ as we traditionally define it. It's more than just our mental capacity. There's more to us than that. And it's certainly our self-awareness and the persistence of us moving forward in our lives, does play a part in our sum total of ourselves. Now we're going to talk about one of the most well-known intelligence tests that are out there, the Stanford-Binet. It's one of the most popular measures of intelligence. Simon and Binet worked to develop a test to identify children who might not succeed in school. And so they put together the Simon-Binet test. And so they put together a construct of their mental age and their chronological age ratio. They figured the younger the child, the less structured their intelligence would be, but yet as they would grow older, their intelligence would change with their experiences and with what they've learned. And so they put together these 2 variables here, mental age and chronological age, to come up with a value for their intelligence. And a guy by the name of Lewis Terman from Stanford wrote the authoritative book on how to administer and score the Simon Binet scale. Okay, so it wasn't known as Stanford Binet at that point, but yet this guy from Stanford, wrote a book to tell testers how to use this test. Because let's face it, if we have a test, it may be the best one in the world, but if we don't know how to use it, it doesn't do us a whole lot of good. And as time went on, I think in the late 40s and 50s, or early 50s, the name was changed to Stanford Binet. And so the IQ, or intelligence quotient ratio, was equal to the mental age divided by the chronological age times 100. And that was their IQ. And so Stanford Binet has its roots in G. And it looks at basically three general areas and types of intelligence. Crystallized intelligence, how we acquire or learn knowledge. And then we have fluid intelligence. That's like general ability. Sort of like what Spearman was talking about here. The G thing. And so basically crystallized intelligence is rather static in nature. We either learn it or we don't. Fluid intelligence can kind of flow, ebb and flow. Very dynamic. And also got something to do with short-term memory. How well you and I can remember facts and figures and things like that in the short term. Alright. There are some topics covered in the chapter dealing with how to administer an IQ test. I don't know if any of us would ever even be involved in that, but yet to kind of cover that, you have sort of a basal age. It's the lowest point on the test where a test taker can pass 2 consecutive items of equal difficulty. And so this is sort of like the low end of their ability. Then you got your ceiling age, the point where at least 3 out of the 4 items in succession are missed by the test taker. So you kind of reach your level when you keep missing questions. And so you fall between that basal and ceiling age. And so the number of question items that are correct are used to compute the raw score. And then you take that raw score, and there's some tables for you to be able to convert it to a standard score. And then your standard scores are compared to norms for the same age group. And so you look at, if you're testing 13-year-olds, well, then you're going to compare those results against 13-year-old norms. And this is a listing of some IQ tests. The Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, used for basically from 16 to adulthood, late and very, very late adulthood. You see, 89 years. Of course, here's your Stanford Binet. There it is there. Your Kaufman Battery for Children. I really couldn't tell you anything about that one, other than it's for basically children and preteens, right here. Slosson's Full Range Intelligence Test, and McCarthy Scales of Children's Abilities. Now this one gets to really young children from like 2 years 4 months to 8 years 7 months. So it's almost pre-kindergarten all the way to first grade, right there. So, to summarize, intelligence is still defined within the context of how it's being measured. Now, the problem we got with that is that tests are designed to assess outcomes, obviously, not to define them. We kind of need a whole different approach to be able to define outcomes. However, what we do know is that intelligence is a construct that a test can provide some insight into. We can test to see what a person does know. And, you know, these tests give us some small window into the ability and intelligence of boys and girls, and men and women. Is it perfect? No. But it's a tool. And if we use it right, it can give us some very good insights into individuals.